The fact that Debre Damo has been so cut off for so long could be useful in my search for how this kingdom's traditions have echoed through the ages. I need to see the most important building here. Tomorrow I'm going to join the monks at a special service inside the 6th century church.
So we're going to try and get a little bit of shut-eye and then be up with the sun, because that's when the monks get up.
Like every religious ceremony I've seen in Ethiopia, their unique approach to Christianity is evident. But it isn't just the service that's catching my eye, it's the building it's being held in.
The most amazing thing is to see some of the features that I saw earlier in my trip, but used structurally. You begin to get a sense of that history that was being evoked by the architects of Lalibela and Gondar. But here, it's actually holding up this structure. This was what they were echoing.
Here are the square-ended beams I saw on the corners of the windows at Lalibela's rock churches. The rising sun window designs here too. And I last saw these distinctive long wooden beams in the castle at Gondar, where the architecture struck me as being from an older local tradition. And here it is in a 6th century church, made from small uneven stones. It's only these kinds of beams that can hold up walls like these. And another feature literally stands out. Different shaped beams which extend beyond the walls. These are called monkey heads.
I just tried to spend a few minutes just thinking about how this monkey head technology was actually put together. And what I think is that these heads represent the end of a sort of dumbbell-like piece of wood that sat across a beam. And basically, because the ends were wider than the body of these structures, it actually meant that the pressure from above helped to keep the building taut. This actually meant that you could actually build more than one story on these buildings.
Here is a distinct continuity of architectural styles, which it's almost certain were developed indigenously over nearly 2,000 years. If this continuity stretches back even further, to pre-Christian times, perhaps there is evidence somewhere of the connection to King Solomon and to the Queen of Sheba. Debre Damo deliberately cut itself off from the world. My next destination was once the busiest and most important city in Africa, Aksum. The interesting thing is that at the time that Debre Damo was being founded, Aksum was a huge, thriving city. And I'm just reading this book, which is about Aksum at its height, about it being a huge ivory market and people coming from all about to trade with this enormous empire. The book is the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, a 1st century travel guide which describes Aksum as a thriving, bustling city. In fact, other documents of the time ranked Aksum alongside Rome, Persia and China as one of the 4 great world powers. Given its significance, I think it's remarkable we know so little about its history. After all, Aksum has a considerable claim to fame. This, according to Ethiopians and their Orthodox Church, is where the son of the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon actually brought the Ark of the Covenant 3,000 years ago. Ethiopian Christians believe that beyond these walls is one of the foundations of the Judeo-Christian tradition, the Ark containing the Ten Commandments. Until 1974, that Ark was the cornerstone of the legitimacy of the kingdom itself. The existence of the Ark here would go a long way to prove that the Ethiopian dynasty of emperors was founded by King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. It would confirm the legends that have lasted for centuries. But the Ark is deemed so holy that no one is allowed anywhere near it.
I can't go beyond this point here, because in that chapel there is where the Ark of the Covenant is said to be held.
Security is tight, and it must be kept that way to maintain the faith in the foundations of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, and by extension the legitimacy of centuries of kings. If the Ark is not inside this building, then the foundations of the church and the Ethiopian royal line would be destroyed. But the Ark is not the only potential evidence of this kingdom's ancient heritage. My search for Ethiopia's past continues right next to the Ark's purpose-built resting place.
And now that building may be very new, but come and have a look over here. Down here is something very, very old. This is the remains of a building which is 4th century, said to have been built by King Ezana.
Ezana, archaeologists believe, was responsible for Ethiopia's first Christian church. He was the first Ethiopian emperor to convert to Christianity. Archaeologists know this for certain because coins minted during his rule show almost the moment of Ezana's conversion. One coin has a Christian cross in its design, but another, earlier coin, shows the pre-Christian religious symbol of the crescent moon and the sun. This is hugely significant. It means that there was a continuity of ruler before and after Ethiopia became a Christian country. The Judeo-Christian tradition here does seem to be unbroken. The coins confirm another fact. By the 4th century, this was a significant, well-established kingdom. This was the only place in sub-Saharan Africa at that time known to have issued currency. The coins aren't the only objects in Aksum that show the power this place had at the beginning of the Christian era. These are the grave markers, or stelae, of the emperors at Aksum. They were made from solid granite, and some date back to the 1st and 2nd centuries. They are thought to be the largest pieces of stone ever to come out of a quarry in the ancient world. The tallest stood at over 30 meters and weighed around 500 tons. I think they're as impressive as any monument I've seen in Athens or Rome. My guide here, Yagalam Fisheha, is showing me their amazing carvings, which are still beautifully clear almost 2,000 years after they were made. They depict the great buildings it was believed the emperors would inhabit in the afterlife, skyscrapers to immortality.
This architecture was the architecture of the Aksumite people. It's an architecture of a building.
Yes.
Multi-story house.
I see.
Multi-story house. Have you
And
got
then these are the...
wooden beams. They represent, the end of the wooden beams. When the Aksumites were practicing this architecture, first they started with wood. So we have the windows. So we have the wooden beams. Then we have another. So this in general is multi-story house building.
I've seen this before. This is the architecture used at Debre Damo around 500 years later. And over 1,000 years later, it appears to have inspired the stonework of the churches of Lalibela. At the top is a symbol of the rising sun once more.